My Girl Life podcast is sponsored by Glamour Boutique. Glamour Boutique is the leading name in cross-dressing fashion and lifestyle with a physical location in New Jersey and, of course, their famous website. Be sure to use your My Girl Life discount code MGL15. And listen, I know they have your best interests at heart, so check them out. Let me ask you, what challenges did you incur while you were in the district attorney's office after you had come out?
Well, at that point, I guess I had been in the office 26 years and I was a senior prosecutor. I was a little concerned, but I also knew.
Were you treated differently?
Of course, I was treated as a woman.
Which is a very positive thing.
We had another DA who had transitioned a few years before me, and they had transitioned on the same floor of the building where I was when I finally announced my transition. And so when I talked to one of my friends, the first person in the office that I talked to, he goes, "Oh yeah, when this person did it, they went around and talked to all of us and, showed pictures and kind of did an individual thing." And he goes, "I thought that was really good." And so I adopted that. And so what a
coincidence that that happened in your office. Yeah, that's the odds of that are pretty low.
Yeah, and
convenient.
It was something that the office had already had to deal with.
So I was the skids, if you will.
I wasn't reinventing the wheel, which was a good thing. And so I came out to people individually on the floor that I was working with. And yes, I showed them pictures, and I had a picture up in my office of me as Jessie. And a few people asked me, "Is that your girlfriend?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, kind of. But,
yeah, I spent a lot of time with her.
One person got a little upset about it. And from what I heard, then subsequently in 2016 voted for Donald Trump because I transitioned, but had gone to HR, and then HR gave me a call.
Are you kidding me?
Yes. They were very concerned that I was going to be using the ladies' room. And so HR called me and then said, "Well, we heard a rumor. You don't have to say anything, but we just want to let you know we're here if you need us for anything." And I said, "Oh, you mean about my transition? Yeah, well, that's not a rumor. That's happening. And you know what? I have my court date next month for my name and gender change. So, we probably should discuss timelines and everything on this. So when would be a good time? You want me to come down now?"
What was the look on their face?
And it was our HR lawyer and
deer in the headlights.
And she was like, "Yeah, it would be good." And I went down and we had a great conversation for a couple hours, and they were very, very helpful about everything and understanding on that. So when I made the decision to transition, it went fairly quickly because I came out to folks in January, started therapy in February, hormones in March, and in May, at the end of May, I changed my name and gender.
Wow.
And then,
if you're going to do it, just do it.
And then in August is when I did my FFS and my boobs. So, it was literally, I had done enough research. I had looked at it enough. I knew my life, and I knew that I was not going to change. It was not going to be any
You had
different.
a lot of time to think about it and know that it was right, and you pulled the trigger.
And it was like, I have never looked back in any sense of the way. I have had absolutely not a single moment of regret. My life has become incredibly more beautiful. I think I had 213 friends on Facebook when I was my old self. And
right.
I think I have somewhere around 2,000 people following me now on that. And I have 2,800 that I have as friends, and I know almost all of those people.
I'm fascinated at how society treats a woman versus a man, and that's a whole nother topic and a whole nother podcast, but I just find it fascinating. And while as a guy, I'm very social, and I've had lots of friends and great long-term friendships and great relationships. It's just not the same as when Maddie goes out, and the attention and the way people treat Maddie is just amazing. It's a good feeling.
It's a total different experience being out as male.
It is.
And it's one that I am so incredibly thankful that I was given this gift of being trans, this ability to see life.
I love that you call it a gift. That's great.
It is a gift. Are you kidding? I mean,
I think Maddie in my dressing is a gift. I always say I felt like I was walking around life with a box of 8 crayons and somebody handed me a box of 32. My life is so much more colorful, in lots of different ways.
For me, it just was such an amazing change. For
you, it just, all that keeping it at bay and feeling guilty and the shame. And I know that probably went away earlier, but that must have been a huge relief.
It truly was. And I know some trans gals, they want to be stealth and they want to, and it's just like, look, I didn't trade my closet for a different closet. Okay.
That's a good point.
I am who I am. I am not hiding who I am. I don't care if people know that I'm trans. I mean, a lot of folks don't even realize that. I don't think.
Know, yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I've had some of my female friends going, "Oh my God, I am so jealous of you. You know what it's like to have an orgasm as a guy." Because they think about it in their minds. They would love to know what that's like. And I'm like, yeah. And I also know what it's like to orgasm as a woman. And I got to tell you, I joined the right team.
That's funny. Are there any cases that you worked on that you'd like to mention or can mention?
I've done a whole lot of things over the career. Like I said, my first murder trial was the murder of a trans woman that got gunned down on Sunset Boulevard. Was
that just assigned to you, or did you try to get on that case?
Oh, no. It was just pending in my courtroom, and
another coincidence.
My boss handed it to me, and I go in for the first hearing on it, and the defense lawyer, who's from Orange County, goes, "Are you Phyllis's kid?" And I went, "You know my mom?" And he goes, "You're Phyllis's kid?" He goes, "Yeah, I've known her for years." He had been a special counsel to Nixon in the Nixon White House and part of the Republican politics that my mom was involved in. And so he was a gay Republican Nixonite from Orange County.
You'll find many of those.
And so it was like, that was a weird coincidence on that. And then he had offered to plead guilty to manslaughter, and I was like, no, this is a murder case. And so we ended up having to go through and do the trial, and the guy ended up getting convicted of the second-degree murder. So I was glad. I stuck to my guns because I had a victim. I didn't care that my victim was trans.
Didn't matter. It was a human being.
It was somebody who got shot for the wrong reason. And, you don't get to make up some excuse after the fact to try to limit your liability when we all know what it was. And there was a lot of investigation on that case. And so it was a lot of fun. I've sued Sony BMG for putting rootkits on music CDs. I've sued Apple for slowing down the speeds on iPhones and, causing folks to buy new phones. I sued Time Warner for false advertising of their internet-related speeds. I sued Uber for their failure in background checks and misrepresentations about some of the fees and other things that they were doing. So I've had a really, really good career. I got into
very interesting.
I got into frauds back in 96, I think it was, when I started in the consumer division. And before that, I started out and moved up really quickly. I spent approximately 3 months doing misdemeanors, and then I got moved into the felony groups. And within a year, I was helping run the calendar in the Superior Court and handling murders and special circumstances cases. At 3 years, I was assigned to the major narcotics division. So, 1992, 93,
you were on the fast track.
I was doing Colombian drug rings in Los Angeles. So yeah, I had a very interesting career. Then I went back to the trials again. And that was during, that was during the OJ, era on all of that.
Yeah, I lived in LA at that time in the 90s.
And then I somehow got into consumer. I basically helped build and create what is now the cyber crimes division. I was one of only 2 high-tech crime prosecutors in LA County, and we've built that up. I think we had 2 investigators, 2 DAs, and 1 secretary, and now there's 5 secretaries and 30 investigators and, I think maybe 15 or 20 DAs assigned to some of those things. And so, and I helped build that and create that.
So let's talk about your political activism. Tell me about your political dysphoria as you describe it.
Yeah, it was like, I was a Republican for a large part of my life, just because that's, where I grew up and where I had come from and, very law and order. I worked for a U.S. senator who was a Republican from Colorado. I worked for a congresswoman from the 3rd District of Nebraska. I was a legislative aide in our unicameral here in Nebraska while I was in college. And so at a young age, I was very involved in politics and attended a lot of political events, especially since my mom was the national chair. And I met Reagan when I was 13 and 14.
So your mom was the national chair of the Republican Party?
The Young Republicans.
Young Republicans. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so, in 1975, they had a convention in Indianapolis, and I got to spend time meeting Ronald Reagan and a whole bunch of other senators, congressmen, governors. So that was kind of where I got kind of enmeshed in all of that.
Taste of it, yeah.
And then after I got out of law school and I was working in the DA's office, I basically kind of just stepped back from politics and I wasn't involved. I'd registered as a Republican and I just kind of stayed there. But over the years, my politics changed. And the fact that I was a Republican was, it was kind of an honor to my mom for her breaking the class ceilings that she was able to do and become a leadership person in the party.
Do you think your stance changed because of being transgender, or you just started learning more about the different platforms and you're like, that's not for me, regardless of whether I was trans or not?
Well, obviously, yes, because there were 30 years in there where I didn't know I was trans and I was still doing I wasn't involved in the politics, but I was watching it and keeping track. And I was a voter who would vote for the person, not the party. And so I had not.
Yeah, me too.
I had not been totally brainwashed, and I just didn't re-register just because it was easier. But when the anti-trans legislation started coming out, and of course, after I transitioned, there's no way that I could be a part of a party that wants to see me eradicated.
Nor would you want to.
And the Democrats aren't all that much better in some aspects of trans rights and things, but at least they're not openly hostile towards us the way the others are. And so back in 23, at the end of 2022, I made a decision that I knew I had to go lobby in one of these states because there were just too many anti-trans bills coming down the pike and there were not enough people fighting back against them and weren't oriented. So I decided.
And that's the work the general public doesn't see, assigning judges and writing up legislation and things that the general public just doesn't see, but that's where the rubber meets the road and affects people's lives.
Well, the year I transitioned, one of the first things I discovered was the Family Research Council's tome on responding to the transgender agenda or whatever it was, which is basically a playbook that lays out everything that the Christian nationalists want to do to trans folks and how to go about doing that, including prohibiting from participation in sports, prohibiting insurance coverage for transition-related care, prohibiting the changing of governmental records and documents to match your gender identity. So this has all been laid out, and it was laid out right as I was starting my transition, and I was like watching this. And then so for those next few years, I was watching that playbook being executed. They spent millions of dollars. They have spent millions of dollars. They have created bogus organizations. They have created, experts out of people who are not experts, and have really pushed this. And so, and I kept seeing this and seeing it getting worse and worse. So at the end of 2022, I just said, well, I'm going to go somewhere and I'm going to, get involved and try to get some, legal, responses into what they're doing. And then I got contacted by my former State Farm insurance agent, who was our agent back in my hometown here in Nebraska, who had retired, who was a coach and was contacting me because the senator here in Nebraska had introduced the Sports and Spaces bill. And so, he had contacted me wanting to find out some information about it because he was just outraged that they're going to do this to these trans kids who all they want to do is play soccer or play baseball or basketball or whatever with their friends. And he was just outraged they were going to do this. And so then I discovered, wow, I guess I'm going back to my home state of Nebraska to start doing this. And I really did not know anybody here. And I mean, as far as the political world was concerned, because it had changed so much. I mean, I still know some of the folks who are in the Republican Party because I was in there with them through college and law school. So
sure.
But I didn't know anybody in the community here. And so I just basically came back and I started meeting folks. I started talking with some of the people in the LGBTQ plus community. I tried to meet with some of the senators, and I ended up testifying against both the Sports and Spaces bill and the Medical Restriction Act. And it broke my heart that they were attacking there's not a lot of trans kids in Nebraska, but there are such amazing kids. Mm-hmm. And talking with them, their families, and seeing everybody, I made a promise to them that if that bill passed, I would come back here and fight it. It passed in May, got signed, and I bought my house in July.
Well, that's a great commitment, and they're blessed to have you on their side, not only from a legal standpoint, but you live the life, and you're fighting from a point of view that is real and living what they're experiencing. And that's the best person, I think, to fight for them.
And so the day I closed escrow, I took my escrow papers, went down and got my driver's license and registered as a Democrat here because I'd gotten to know some of the people here.
Speaking of Democrats, tell us about your attendance at the DNC and your famous, I saw you on TV. I think they cut to you several times, and I didn't necessarily know it was you at the time, but I saw you and it stood out, and you were just having a great time. And then I learned it was you. So tell us, how did that come about?
I had decided that I was going to get involved in politics. I almost ran for the legislature here. I really considered it. I spoke with a lot of people. I just didn't feel like I was going to get enough of the party support at this point because I hadn't really been here long enough, and I was moving in, and there was a very highly contested congressional seat race in the 2nd district. And of course, as you know, the 2nd district of Nebraska is called the Blue Dot because we in Nebraska don't award winner take all on our electoral votes. And so because the 2nd district is a little bit more Democratic, there's been a few times that we have gotten the electoral vote for the Democratic candidate. And so I knew I was going to be involved in that. And they hadn't been helpful so much, but I knew I had to continue to get involved and fight. And so I became a Central Committee member for the Douglas County Democratic Party. And then I ran for I got appointed to the State Central Committee. And then when we had our election at the state convention, I actually ran for elector. I wanted to be the person that signed the Electoral College certificate. And I actually came in first on the first round balloting, but then I lost on the second round after they dropped off the lowest.
Oh, I didn't know that was a voting thing. I just thought that somebody was selected.
We voted on our 2nd district caucus. And then after we did the elector, we voted for delegates, and I was the leading vote getter for delegates from the 2nd district. And so it was such an incredible honor to have them trust me enough to be able to go back and do that. And so I was in Chicago and meeting with all kinds of folks.
What was that like? The energy was amazing. I know the outcome is so disappointing, and we had our hopes up so high, but that event, the energy was just electric.
It was incredible. And
that was on TV, let alone being there in person.
It was. And we were extremely lucky because the stage stuck out like this, and we were right on the side. So we could see back into the back behind the stage. We knew who all was coming out because we could see it beforehand. And it was funny. I think it was after Stevie Wonder performed. Oh God, Cory Booker came out and he goes, I don't know about the rest of you, but Nebraska is bringing it tonight. And it was so much fun.
Part. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Because we were sitting up there dancing, and I think that that was the night I was wearing my pink dress, pink blouser, my pink boots, and it was it was just so much fun. And I spent some time that day. It was like an 88-year-old delegate who was she was so much fun. And
Awesome.
The whole delegation was so much fun. And everyone was so pretty much accepting and everything, and getting a chance to just engage in that process and be involved with it was so incredibly exciting. And I had an amazing time in Chicago. I met so many folks. I'm also the vice chair of the Stonewall Democrats for Nebraska, which is the queer caucus for the Democratic Party. And so the chair and I went down and cornered Sarah McBride and asked her to come back to Nebraska for our big fundraiser in May. We're hoping we can get her. We did get Danica Rome last year, and then in October, Zoe Zephyr was out for our fundraiser.
I've sent Sarah a couple DMs asking her if I could interview her. I'm sure she gets 1,000 requests, but maybe someday you can put in a good word for me.
I would love to get her on my show if I ever start doing them again. It's been a couple of months since I've done one. But my very first guest on my first podcast was Nathan Hochman, the guy who's now the DA of Los Angeles. So I felt really good about doing that.
Awesome. Hey, let's a little peek into your social life. What does your social life look like these days?
It's not as good as I would like it to be because, living in two different states it makes it hard to get it.
Yeah.
But in LA, there's the T-Girl Nights, the first Saturday of every month that, Hamburger Mary's that Jamie has done.
Been to my fair share of those.
That was one of my assignments that I got when I got my therapist was I had to either go to T-Girl Nights or to the Oxwood back when that existed before
Shine.
It closed down.
Club Shine.
And so I chose to go down to Hamburger Mary's for my first one. And I really appreciate Jamie's commitment to the community.
She's been doing that for a long time.
And having a safe space for people to come out and be able to get together and celebrate their uniqueness, celebrate our love for each other, celebrate the community itself and in a place that is accepting. So I went there because it was an assignment that I had to do, but then I stayed because I got to like and know a lot of the folks there.
Nice.
And for me, it's a trip because it's 78 miles, I think, from my house to there. So, it's a 3-hour there and back.
Yeah. It's a 3-hour tour.
For me to get down there. So it's like, that's how much I am committed to helping, her help our community because it's something that is incredibly important.
I love West Hollywood. I like to get a hotel room there and then go to the Abbey and just bar hop along Santa Monica Boulevard. I watched Vanderpump Rules for years. And so, of course, I had to go to SUR and meet everybody and meet Jax and get a picture with him. And then lately, Tom and meeting those guys. And it's just a fun experience to go to West Hollywood.
Yeah, it's, I go there occasionally. My social life was much better before COVID. I was a member of a club in Hollywood, Cloak and Dagger, that was on Tuesday nights. Everyone had to wear black. It was membership only plus guests. And we would pregame at Bordner's, one of the oldest bars in Hollywood, and then walk down Hollywood Boulevard to the 2 blocks to where the club was. I grew so much as an individual and as a woman being a part of that group.
I think being social and going out and making friends, and I mean, yours is different than your transition and transgender. I'm a cross-dresser, but making friends and going out and being social, and it makes it more real. And all of a sudden you have friends and you have obligations and things to do. And it just becomes more real. And then you start to feel more comfortable about who you are and what you're doing. Just being social. It's human nature to be social anyway. It's a need that I think all of us have. Some of us don't pursue it like others, but it's important.
Oh, definitely. And, I just travel so much now that I'm in these different areas. So, now my social is like going out for a beer after the Central Committee meeting. It's
right.
like, I just have so much traveling that I've been doing that it's hard for me to have a relationship with somebody.
Or have a routine or, something you do every Friday. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like when we're done here, I'll leave and meet my friends at our favorite bar, which we do every Friday. And I look forward to that all week. It's just a routine. But if I traveled, I wouldn't get to do that every week. So there's some trade-offs.
Yeah. And it's like sometimes I don't know which weekend I'm going to be where I'm going to be or what I'm going to do. It's like I'm back in Nebraska now because my brother had hip replacement surgery. And so I'm here for 2 weeks being his primary caregiver. So as soon as we're done, you're going to go out to the bar. I'm going to go help him put his compression socks on so that it is
fun. Hey, let me ask you a question. This is kind of off the subject and from left field. Do you ever get a sense that some trans women resent cross-dressers? And when I say that, and this is me thinking, because I've experienced some of this, is maybe they resent the fact that we get to be a girl or a woman and throw our clothes on and our wig and our makeup, and then we get to take it off when we come home and live life as a male and all the benefits that come with that. And we don't have to endure what you've endured and what they endure, because that's not lost on me. It's absolutely night and day. But do you feel like some trans women resent cross-dressers?
I know they do.
In that way?
I know they resent them, but I don't know if it's necessarily in that way. Yes, because I've had people tell me that.
Well, in what way have you, as people, communicated to you that they're resentful?
They're resentful because, and mind you, this is not me because I have a lot of cross-dressers.
I know.
It's just, I talk to a lot of people in the community and the trans community, there are people that have very hard and fast beliefs and decisions and whatever. And, nothing will change that. And I've had some tell me that they resent cross-dressers because they got no skin in the game. They can just close up shop tomorrow and never have to worry about the discrimination coming down upon them.
Well, maybe I worded it differently, but that's exactly what I'm talking about. And by the way, it's very real. It's not lost on me that trying to work as a trans woman, trying to date or have a relationship as a trans woman is very difficult. And like I said, we get to, take it all off on a Monday morning. We get to live life as a white male and have a quote unquote semi-regular life. And that's not lost on me. But I do think, and maybe there's some cross-dressers that just don't realize that, or they don't take that into consideration, but they should, because it's a whole different path. We do have some overlap and there's room for synergies. But anyway, I just wanted to run that by you because I've experienced a little bit of it, and I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've had some who are just, vehemently against, they just say, I'm going to go see such and such, and they're, well, what the fuck are you doing talking with them for? They're not like us. They don't even look, shut the fuck up.
Oh, it's crazy. We should all we're all in, we have, what do they say? We're in the same storm, but we're in different boats, right? It's not lost on me.
It very much so. And it's, at the end of the day, I think for some of them, it's an ability to look down on someone because people are looking down on them. And so, so it's like, oh, so you're even down here lower than me. I may be down here, but you're down here. So I got this on you. It's like, please.
I'm the real McCoy. Yeah. You're a poser. I'm the real McCoy. Well, anyway, I just wanted to ask that. I think that's it for the episode. Is there anything else you wanted to communicate or say before we part ways?
Oh, no. I could talk for hours and hours.
Before you go put on the compression socks.
Yeah, the alarm just went off. I've got to give him his nighttime meds now too. Also,
gotcha.
I could talk for a long time on a lot of these issues. I mean, we didn't even get into the fact that I was in DC, and was, I'm licensed to practice before the Supreme Court. And so because of that, I was able to arrive at the court at 4 a.m. and be able to get inside the courtroom for the argument on Scrimeti case. So I got to see Chase argue that case in front of the court, along with a whole bunch of trans.
What an amazing experience.
Other trans lawyers, trans kids who were the subject of the actual lawsuit, trans journalists. There were more trans folks in that Supreme Court on that day than there had ever been in the history of the U.S. To be a part of that was just so incredible and so empowering. And I got to meet Lily Wachowski, the director of The Matrix, who's, a trans woman. And she and I were on a amicus brief that was submitted to the Supreme Court along with Elliot Page and Chris Mosher, the triathlete. There was like 63 of us. I think Natalie Maines was a part of it, or Nicole Maines was a part of it. And so, just getting to see some of those folks that I had been involved with in this fight and actually getting to see the argument and staring at the justices while this argument was going on. I mean, I made eye contact with
surreal.
All 9 of them. And they know that we were trans lawyers who were there because the day before we had our admission ceremony where we were able to get 12 more trans lawyers licensed to practice before the court. So, and we're doing that every year with the National Trans Bar Association. So there's just been so much that's happened over the last 10 years in my transition that it's just, it's made my life incredibly full, incredibly beautiful. And it's like, I wish that these people who are fighting against trans folks and saying that we don't exist and that we don't could see how much fuller and better my life
or
has
meet
been.
Or meet some of us. I know I have friends that probably felt that same way, and now that they've met Maddie, they are true friends. I mean, when my parents died, they gave me cards and they hug me when I walk in. And even if there's not a lot of people around, like my friends, they'll sit by me at the bar. People don't know if we're together or not, and they don't care. And these are people that were far right type people. So I think if you could just meet somebody, and you can understand them better and relate to them. And so thank you for your time and your advocacy. And, a little bit of that goes a long way, and it's a domino effect. When you affect somebody, hopefully they affect somebody else as well.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I have found, that I have had an effect on so many people just by living my life and being open and
just being who you are. Yeah.
People seeing things like this podcast or an interview that I did with somebody or a story that was written in a newspaper. And I have people contact me, just saying, thank you for that. You've given me such an insight. Or one parent of a trans gal whose dad is a Los Angeles County Superior Court judge wrote me and said that her dad was finally understood what her daughter was going through because he knew me and had heard my story and done all that. And that helped him come to grips with realizing that it wasn't something to be feared. And it is something, as I say, I feel incredibly blessed. And I feel that, my having been able to live the life that I have, it's just been so beautiful. And getting this information out and changing people's minds, one person at a time is how we do it. And we got to just keep doing it.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate your time. And again, appreciate all your advocacy work.
Great. Thank you so much, Maddie.
Well, that's it for our episode. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. It lets me know I'm connecting with you. And remember, be bold, be kind, be you. Take care, Jesse.
Thanks a lot.